Iran just hit a CIA station in Saudi Arabia. And right now, behind closed doors, the CIA is preparing for a ground invasion and a full-scale civil war inside Iran. The lesson here is pretty simple, and history has proven it time and time again. You do not mess with the CIA. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today, we are breaking down the absolute chaos unfolding in the Middle East, and more importantly, what the United States and Israel are planning next, because the chessboard has just been flipped. First, let's look at the attack that crossed a massive red line. We now have concrete confirmation from official sources that a suspected Iranian drone directly struck the CIA station located within the United States Embassy compound in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Fortunately, nobody was injured, and the embassy was largely empty at the time of the strike. But make no mistake, the symbolic victory for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, is undeniable. This wasn't just a random target. This was a highly calculated message sent directly to American intelligence. This strike proves a terrifying reality that military strategists have been warning about. Iranian drones are going to be a massive generational headache. Tehran might not have the traditional multi-billion-dollar air force that the United States possesses, but they have thousands, if not tens of thousands, of these cheap, highly effective suicide drones. You can literally launch them from the back of a pickup truck in the desert. They can evade radar, they can take out sophisticated missile launchers, and they can destroy heavily guarded stockpiles. They are essentially the new suicide bombers of this next phase of warfare in the Middle East, leveling the playing field in a way traditional armies are struggling to counter. Now, let's shift focus to the biggest question on everyone's mind. Is an American ground invasion actually coming? Because trust me, all roads in this conflict lead back to the CIA's covert planning. Over the last few days, the administration in Washington has been sending massive, unmistakable signals that a ground invasion is not completely off the table. At a recent press conference, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was asked point-blank if there are currently American boots on the ground in Iran. His answer was chillingly ambiguous. He said, "No, but we're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do." He made it crystal clear that the United States is not going to broadcast its operational limits to the enemy. He stated that the administration ensures our enemies know the US will go as far as absolutely necessary to advance American interests, without repeating the mistakes of 20-year occupations. And then, we got the most surprising and headline-grabbing comment of all from the president himself. Speaking directly to the New York Post, he said, "I don't have the yips with respect to boots on the ground. Like every president says, there will be no boots on the ground. I don't say it. I say probably don't need them, or if they were necessary." This is deliberate, calculated ambiguity. Keeping the ultimate threat of ground troops on the table gives the United States maximum leverage in any future standoff. But behind closed doors, things are getting very concrete and very urgent. In a recent highly classified Senate briefing, the administration shared military plans that left lawmakers stunned. Senator Richard Blumenthal publicly stated after the briefing that he is more fearful than ever that United States troops might be deployed to accomplish the administration's aggressive goals. But here is where the story takes a mind-bending turn, revealing the true master plan. A ground operation is coming, but it likely won't start with American troops crossing the border. Let's take a look at the demographic and geographic reality of Iran. If you look at the rugged western territory of Iran, that is where the Kurdish population lives. To understand the sheer scale of this potential uprising, you need the hard numbers. There are roughly 8 to 10 million Kurds living inside Iran. That makes up about 10% of Iran's total population of roughly 92 million people. Just across the border in neighboring Iraq is Iraqi Kurdistan, a fiercely independent region the United States has partnered with, funded, and trained for decades. Iran has a dark, bloody history of suppressing its Kurdish population, and the Kurds haven't forgotten a single injustice. Just days ago, Iran's IRGC launched aggressive, preemptive drone strikes against Iranian Kurdish opposition groups stationed in northern Iraq. Why? Because the regime in Tehran is absolutely terrified of what is brewing. For years, these various Kurdish factions were fractured, competing against each other for power and local influence. But when they saw the recent historic upheaval and protests inside Iran, they made a monumental decision. They united against a common enemy, the Islamic Republic. Groundbreaking reports are now confirming that the CIA has been quietly smuggling massive caches of weapons into Kurdistan, not for weeks, but for months, right under the nose of the IRGC. On top of that, intelligence leaks suggest the president has held direct, unprecedented phone calls with Kurdish leaders in both Iraq and Iran. The CIA's plan is brilliant, but incredibly dangerous. The weapons flow to the Iraqi Kurds, who use their established smuggling routes to transport them across the mountainous border to the newly united Iranian Kurdish opposition forces. With thousands of well-trained, battle-hardened fighters who gained invaluable urban combat experience fighting ISIS, these Kurdish units can launch a major ground operation to pin down Iranian security forces in the west. This creates a massive strategic diversion. By forcing the IRGC to deploy their heaviest assets to the mountainous western borders, it gives unarmed civilians and student protesters in other major Iranian cities the crucial window they need to rise up. The regime simply will not have enough manpower or firepower to crush a nationwide protest like they did in the past if their elite units are bogged down fighting heavily armed Kurdish militias. Senior Kurdish politicians in Iraqi Kurdistan are already signaling to journalists that a major ground push into western Iran is expected within days, heavily backed by US logistics and Israeli intelligence. But the absolute nightmare for the IRGC doesn't stop in the western mountains. Let's look at the southeastern corner of the country, the volatile Sistan and Balochistan province. This is the historic home of the Baloch people, a Sunni minority that has been fighting for independence and facing brutal, systematic state suppression for decades. Statistically, there are roughly 4.8 million Baloch people living in Iran, representing another massive vulnerability for the regime. These militant forces, operating in the harsh deserts of the south and east, have been waging a low-level insurgency, constantly clashing with both Iranian and Pakistani border forces. They now see a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Without waiting for a formal green light or foreign coordination, Baloch militants have recently launched devastating, coordinated attacks on police patrol stations in southern Iran, leaving a large number of Iranian security officials killed or wounded. This insurgency isn't waiting for a CIA weapon drop. They are taking pure advantage of the absolute chaos created by the intense airstrikes currently rocking the country. So, what is the ultimate endgame for Washington and Jerusalem? The next plan of the USA and Israel in Iran isn't just about taking out a few missile silos or decapitating the political leadership from the air. The real, covert strategy is far more devastating. It is a calculated attempt to completely collapse the Iranian regime from the inside out by intentionally igniting simultaneous civil wars on its most vulnerable borders. They are funding an organized, heavily armed insurgency in the West, leveraging the 8 to 10 million strong Kurdish population, while simultaneously allowing the spontaneous uprising in the southeast, driven by the 4.8 million strong Baloch population, to stretch the IRGC past its breaking point. Of course, this entire shadow war is filled with immense geopolitical risks. Turkey is watching the Kurds get stronger right on its borders, and Ankara is furious. Furthermore, alliances of convenience in the Middle East rarely last. But for now, while the world is distracted by the threat of American fighter jets, the real ground invasion is already maneuvering into position, and it doesn't require a single American soldier. I'll be watching this powder keg closely, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button to beat the algorithm, and I'll see you in the next update.